They assumed that everything was being bugged, that the communications, the rooms, everything was being bugged. So what they did is that they brought these pads that children used as a means to communicate while they were in Moscow. Hey, I was looking at some of the pop culture and retro stuff that I sold online today, and I sold this magic slate. And as I was going along looking at what I had, including this wooden frame tray puzzle from the 1950s from Play School that shows a milkman talking to children. Not sure why, but you know, colors are cool. A Play School hourglass toy. I actually, I can't remember what year this is from, has really cool Play School logo. Someone actually messaged me and goes, how much time does it keep? And it's a baby toy. It doesn't keep any time. It just kind of, it's like sand through the hourglass. So are the days of our lives. And I sold this 1973 book. It's from a series called The McGurk Mysteries. This one's called The Nose Knows. It's just a kid's detective novel from 1973. And someone also bought this magic slate that I have. This one in particular is with the character Little Lulu. And I always wondered, who came up with this idea? I feel like it's been around forever, but I've never questioned it. So I decided to look it up. The one thing about the magic slate toy is that it's one of the staples of the party toys, or it's something that you would see at the grocery store while you were waiting in line. It was like an impulse item with its really cool, like popular cartoon character artwork on it. The kids sitting there in the grocery cart would want to buy it. And it was like a 10-cent toy. So it was very cheap. And I think they sold a lot of them over the years. I'm not sure when it started, but this red plastic pencil has pretty much been a staple as long as I can remember. One of the things they would always say is that you can draw these characters that are on the board, but the problem is sometimes the wax just wasn't sticky enough unless you pushed really hard. This has pretty much been the default model for a very long time, at least all the way through the 80s, starting out with when it began. So looking up the magic slate, here's what I found. The magic slate was actually created in 1923. That's actually much farther back than I thought it would be. It was by a person named R.A. Watkins. R.A. Watkins worked in a corset factory. So my first thought is like, did it have something to do with corsets? Was it made out of corset material? It wasn't. There are actually two stories about how they think that the magic slate originally started. The first is Watkins just devised a makeshift timesheet out of scraps of corset plastic on wax boards. So corset plastic would be thin enough? Like this? I guess I don't know enough about the manufacturing of corsets to really question this. Now the main thing was that Watkins thought they could save on paper because it was going to be reusable. Another story is actually more of a fun one, and I feel like it's made up just because of the way that it plays out. So this second story goes like this. Watkins was actually approached by a man looking to, like a door-to-door salesman, looking to sell the rights of the invention that he discovered called Paper Saver, a simple homemade device made from tissue wax and cardboard. Then it says the owner of the plant, which would be Watkins, told the inventor that he'd sleep on it and let him know first thing in the morning. Now, my first thought reading this was like, and then he stole the idea. But no, the way that it goes is it says the inventor that approached him was then arrested that very same night. Couldn't find out why, nobody says. So after he was arrested, he called Mr. Watkins and said he would give him the rights to the invention if Watkins just paid his bail. So he took over the idea, and then it says he changed it from being wax paper to the plastic because it adhered better to the wax. Now, I don't believe that story just because the whole called this random person that he met to make his bail, and what did he get arrested for? And the whole thing is just like, I'm gonna give this up. And then suddenly, boom, I'm a millionaire. I don't know. Either way could go. Stranger things have happened, I suppose. But the way that the story continues to go after this is that what he really did is he was using it as more a timesheet. Here's an example based on a score pad for a game from the 1960s. Essentially, there would be just a cover sheet with something printed on it, and you would be able to mark down things as you went along. How else would you be able to keep a timesheet? It would have to have something like that on here, right? Then as the story goes, he took it home and his kids found it and they started drawing on it and had lots of fun, and he realized, oh, maybe this is something that would be more profitable. Then he also realized that it could be repurposed and reused with popular characters over time. The first people that put out the product was a printer in Aurora, Illinois called the Strathmore Company, and they produced the earliest versions of it. And it was called the Paperless Notepad. Then later, that company, Strathmore, was bought out by Whitman Publishing, which is one of the largest publishers in the world of children's games, comics, and books, all in the US. And of course, one of the stories that goes along with this is a story of espionage and spy lore. So in a book that was put out called The Dead Drop, the true story of Oleg Panofsky and the Cold War's most dangerous operation, and it was written by Jeremy Dunn. I have no idea if I pronounced the title name right, but so the story is that 2 congressional delegates were flying to Moscow, and they were flying there on a mission, so like a spy mission or something like that. And they assumed that everything was being bugged, that the communications, the rooms, everything was being bugged. So what they did is that they brought these pads that children used as a means to communicate while they were in Moscow. So they would write on the pads to each other and show them and then just rip it up, and they were doing it that way. And the whole thing is that they were easy to carry, easy to get. They didn't really break, but if they did, they would just bring a bunch of them with them. Now, Whitman, when they heard that the people were using this as spy devices, they actually sent 50 cases, which is about 2,500 slates, to the US State Department so that they could use them. At one point, the people at Whitman were even kind of tempted to make light of it for kids, since this was kind of getting out there that this was happening. And they wanted to start producing magic slates with pictures of cartoon Russian spies and American super sleuths on them. But they eventually did not end up doing that. One of the funniest things is the competition at this time actually scoffed at them using this. The owner of Etch-a-Sketch at Ohio Arts was saying, all you have to do is put a piece of paper over the wax and rub it, and you'll be able to see all the messages that were written. Which, if you're writing tons and tons of messages, you really can't. You're writing over the same spot, but it kind of seemed like poo poo poo, you know? And then he even added on top of that by saying, if they used an Etch-a-Sketch, they could shake it, and then you'd never be able to see anything that they wrote because the screen completely disappears. The problem I would like to bring up with that is that an Etch-a-Sketch leaks, it breaks, and you can't really carry as many of them because they're very bulky. And also, have you ever tried writing with one? It would take forever. But that's just I like both of these things, so I'm not really against Etch-a-Sketch. I just think it's kind of funny that he was just like, well, what about us? So anyway, that's what I found out about the Magic Slate. I don't even think they make them anymore. Now, if you get a Magic Slate, it's more of the magnetic doodle and things like that. So that's some information about one of the toys in my collection today.